Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Stalmbach, and I am a child nutrition consultant with the Maine Department of Education's Child Nutrition Program, and welcome to our monthly webinar series. Today, we are going to focus on new crediting guidance in child nutrition programs. Based on stakeholder feedback and to meet the growing and diverse cultural needs of program participants, USDA has updated the food crediting guidance. During today's webinar, all attendees have been placed on mute, and this webinar is being recorded so you can view it at a later time. So let's get started. A series of 7 memos were released last spring and summer that provides guidance on crediting a variety of food products that have not been creditable in the past. The memos can all be found on the USDA website with the link provided on your screen. Please refer back to these memos if you have any questions. I'll be going through each of the memos today. And throughout the presentation, I'm also going to talk about different resources that are available to you, which will assist in crediting different foods. So which programs do these memos apply to? The new crediting guidance applies to the following programs. This includes the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast, Child and Adult Care Food Program, and the Summer Food Service Program. So it covers a large number of child nutrition programs. I also wanted to mention that all of the changes discussed in this webinar, with the exception of dried meat products, will be updated in the food buying guide for child nutrition programs, which many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. The link to the food buying guide is provided on your screen. The food buying guide is a go-to resource to determine the meal pattern contribution and crediting of the products you serve in your programs. So the first update we're going to talk about is coconut. Coconut now credits as a fruit in the child nutrition programs. Now, if you look at the left-hand side of your screen, it lists creditable products. So fresh and frozen coconut credit as fruit based on volume served. For example, a half cup of frozen coconut served in a smoothie would equal a half cup fruit. Dried coconut also credits as a fruit, and it credits at twice the volume served, so the same method as other dried fruits. So for example, if you were to serve a quarter cup dried coconut, that would credit as a half cup fruit. And lastly, coconut water that is labeled as containing 100% juice can also credit as a fruit. And this is also based on the volume served. On the right-hand side of the screen, I have noted some items that are not creditable in any of the programs. So this includes coconut flour, milk, and oil. Next, we're going to talk about hominy or hominy grits. So hominy is traditionally served in Mexican and Native American cultures as a vegetable or a milled grain product, also known as hominy grits. These products may credit as a vegetable or grain component depending on what product is served. So if we're looking at whole hominy, a quarter cup canned, drained hominy or cooked whole hominy credits as a quarter cup starchy vegetable. Now, on the other hand, when the milled form is offered in the form of grits, a half cup cooked or 1 ounce dried hominy grits credit as a 1 ounce equivalent whole grain. So it depends on what form of the product you're serving. Now here are some label reading tips when looking at grits labels, because they're not all the same. When they're specifically labeled as hominy grits and specify that the corn is whole corn, then they can be credited as a whole grain. Grits labeled simply as grits, stone ground corn, or degermed corn are not creditable in the child nutrition programs. In the example provided on your screen, the first ingredient reads specially processed degerminated white corn grits. Therefore, this product is not creditable in the child nutrition programs because it's neither whole nor enriched. It doesn't mention that anywhere on the label. Next, we are going to discuss crediting guidance on corn masa, corn flour, and cornmeal. Now, please note this guidance has been updated from the original memo that was released in April of 2019. So all products containing corn masa, corn flour, and cornmeal are creditable grain ingredients. So this applies to products such as tortilla chips, taco shells, and corn muffins, which are typically offered in school meals. The crediting, like other grains, is determined by the weight of the products as listed in the Exhibit A grain requirements for child nutrition programs, otherwise known as the grain chart. Corn that is not whole or enriched does not credit as a grain. So something to keep in mind when label reading. This is an example of how to use the Exhibit A grain chart, which tells you how to credit certain grain products. In this case, we are going to look up tortillas. So first, you're going to find your product on the left-hand side of the chart, and then the next thing you're going to do is look on the right-hand side to determine the minimum serving size for each 1 ounce equivalent. So if we look up tortillas, they fall under Group B, and this tells us that a 1 ounce equivalent of tortillas equals 28 grams or 1 ounce in weight. So this product credits ounce for ounce. So this is just one example using the Exhibit A grain chart. But you can use it for any grain products that you're serving for breakfast or lunch. So some of you might be familiar with the Exhibit A grains tool. So it was a new tool that was released as part of the web-based interactive food buying guide. They've been making some updates to the food buying guide over time. And so this is an interactive tool that can also help you determine the ounce equivalents for certain grain items. So definitely check it out if you haven't had the chance to. So how does this new guidance relate to crediting whole grain corn products? Some products made with cornmeal and/or corn flour ingredients may require additional information on a product formulation statement or PFS to count towards the whole grain rich requirement. And we will discuss product formulation statements in more detail later in the webinar. One way of determining if a product made with corn is whole grain is to see if it includes an FDA-approved whole grain health claim on its packaging. If it does, then the corn in the product is at least 50% whole grain and would be considered whole grain rich. The most simple way of determining if a corn product is in fact whole grain is to look for whole corn as the first ingredient on the label. Now, speaking of whole grains, I think with all of the updated crediting guidance, some of you will be most happy about this one. Popcorn is now allowed to be credited as a whole grain in the child nutrition programs. Popcorn is a whole grain food and a good source of fiber, and fiber is considered to be an underconsumed nutrient and also a nutrient of public health concern. So this can help address that issue. For crediting popcorn, 3 cups or 1 ounce by weight popped popcorn equals a 1 ounce equivalent whole grain. Now, if you're crediting commercially prepared foods made with popcorn, such as a snack mix, like a prepackaged snack mix, you must obtain a product formulation statement to determine how much grain that product contains. And that's because you don't have the recipe for that, so you need to get more information from the manufacturer. Now, due to the high volume of popcorn that is needed to credit, USDA encourages program operators to pair popcorn with another creditable grain. So, for example, you could pair a sandwich with a half-ounce bag of popcorn, and that would be one way of doing this. This is the Whole Grain Resource Guide from USDA. And this is another resource that's going to be updated based on the new crediting guidance, because there are some products that will be added. And it's definitely a great resource to assist with determining which products are in fact whole grain. So it includes some examples of whole grain foods, how to determine ounce equivalents for certain grains, and also some acceptable ways to document grains in school meals. So when in doubt, if a product is whole grain, this is another resource you can go to. So now we're going to move into meat alternates that are now creditable. So we'll start with dried meat products. Shelf-stable dried and semi-dried meat, poultry, and seafood, such as beef jerky or summer sausage, are now creditable as a meat in the child nutrition programs. These products may be most useful for meals served off-site. So, for example, during school field trips or picnics, or they can also be served as part of your regular meal. It's important to note that the crediting of these products will not be included in the food buying guide, as industry standards vary widely. Product formulation statements and child nutrition or CN labels are the two acceptable formats for documenting meal contributions for dried meat products. So as a refresher, this is what a CN label looks like. It's a product that has been, or products that have CN labels have been evaluated by USDA to determine their contribution towards the meal pattern. So they have a very unique look. They have a border with CN written around it. They have a meal crediting statement, an ID number, a USDA authorization statement, and it also includes the month and year of their approval. So it's a very specific label. So when you hear us talking about CN labels, this is what we're referring to. So it's different than your nutrition facts label. Aside from CN labels, product formulation statements are another way of documenting how a product credits towards the meal pattern. So here's a review of what a formulation statement looks like. So it's needed when purchasing a processed item that does not have a CN label, because not all products do, because it's something that companies have to pay for. And so it might be needed with dried meat products and other meat alternates. So it demonstrates how a processed product contributes towards the meal pattern. And also note that it does have to come from the manufacturer, because it's essentially their written documentation for how it contributes to the meal pattern. So an example you'll see on your screen. Excuse me. So next we are going to talk about crediting Surimi Seafood. So this can now credit as a meat alternate, and surimi can be incorporated into a variety of menu items such as seafood salad, sushi rolls, sandwiches, tacos, and ramen, which is becoming more popular. A 3-ounce portion credits as a 1-ounce meat alternate. Now, within this portion, it may contain as little as 1/3 seafood ingredients, and the amount of seafood actually varies quite a bit among different products. But you can use the 3-ounce portion equals 1-ounce meat alternate as a standard. In order to credit surimi differently, higher percentages can be documented using a CN label or product formulation from the manufacturer. So if they can show that there is more than 1/3 seafood within their product, you can credit it that way. Next, we're going to talk about tempeh. So tempeh is a highly nutritious fermented soybean cake traditionally made from whole soybeans. And it is now creditable as a meat alternate and is used in a variety of recipes, including stir fries, sandwiches, and salads. It provides improved access to vegetarian options and also meets the needs of participants who may have a dietary restriction for cultural or religious reasons. As far as crediting goes, 1 ounce of tempeh equals a 1-ounce equivalent meat alternate. And so this is true for products that contain soybeans and other legumes only. So only if it's a 100% legume product. For other tempeh products that include ingredients such as brown rice or seeds and other vegetables, it can also credit. However, you would need to obtain a CN label or a product formulation statement, and this is because the additional ingredients affect the crediting of it due to the weight, and they don't all credit as a meat alternate. Now let's move into crediting pasta products made with vegetable flour. This new update allows these products to credit as a vegetable. Pasta made with 100% vegetable flour can credit as a vegetable. However, pasta made with non-vegetable ingredients may credit with a product formulation statement to determine the amount. And you can see there's a common theme with needing a product formulation statement for all of the products we've talked about so far. Please note that this crediting does not apply to grain-based pasta products that contain small amounts of vegetable powder for color, such as spinach or sun-dried tomato that you typically see in grocery stores. It must be 100% vegetable flour to credit as a vegetable. The last update we're going to discuss is pasta products made with legume flours, which allows them to be credited as a meat alternate. And there's also a catch here with this one. A 1/2 cup cooked pasta made with 100% legume flour may credit as a 2-ounce equivalent of meat alternate as long as you offer an additional meat alternate such as tofu, cheese, or meat. And so the reason for this is so there's visual recognition of the protein and it's not hidden in the pasta, so it makes it more recognizable for students. There's also required signage and training that goes along with offering a legume pasta. So local program operators must indicate using signs or another education method that pasta made of vegetable flour is a vegetable and not a grain component of the meal. So for example, pasta made with chickpea flour that is served could be labeled as chickpea pasta, because again, you're recognizing the legume that the pasta is made out of. And there also needs to be some education for serving line staff They must also be informed when pasta is made with vegetable flour and how it contributes towards the reimbursable meal. So are they going to count it as a vegetable or a grain? So those are some things to keep in mind if you are to serve pasta that can count as a legume. So we just went through a lot of technical information, and you're probably feeling a bit overwhelmed at this point with, some of the documentation that's needed and what product credits as what. So if you would like more information on a specific topic, I would definitely encourage you to visit Team Nutrition's webinar series on their crediting guidance. And so it also references each memo, so you can download any of the memos that were released and use them as a guide. There's also recorded webinars available on the website as well. And so it breaks down each topic. And as I mentioned earlier, you'll definitely want to check back at the food buying guide, because that is going to be updated to reflect these changes as well. So that concludes our webinar. So thank you for your time today, and I hope you found the webinar helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to email them to me. And if you registered for this webinar and are watching it live, a certificate of attendance will be emailed to you. Again, thank you for watching and have a great day.